We all know those GLP-1 injections work wonders, but that price tag almost gave me a heart attack when my insurance denied coverage. I was staring at a choice between paying my mortgage or paying for weight loss. Talk about a rock and a hard place. Then I found Elevate Health compounded semaglutide at just $58 with payment plans that don't require a second mortgage. Same medication, same results, but a price that real folks can actually afford. Visit joinelevate.com today. That's JOINELEVATE.com. Your wallet will be as happy as your waistline. This medication is not FDA approved.
Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja on Friday ruled that the detained Biafra agitation leader, Nnamdi Kanu, has case to answer because the Nigeria government prosecution team have provided some evidence that requires explanations from the detained Biafra leader. The coordinating lawyer to Nnamdi Kanu, Barrister Aloy Ejimakor, said the judgment of the court does not mean Nnamdi Kanu has been pronounced guilty. Rather, the ruling indicated that he should give explanations to certain evidences the federal government of Nigeria brought before the court. It would be recalled that the ruling on the no-case submission filed by Nnamdi Kanu that was earlier slated to be held on October 10, 2025 was abridged and rescheduled to Friday, the 26th of September 2025. Justice James Omotosho also rejected request by Kanu to be transferred from custody of the Department of State Services, DSS, to the National Hospital Abuja for medical examination over alleged deteriorating health issues. The court subsequently ordered the president of Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, to constitute an investigation committee to examine Kanu's medical condition and submit a report to it in 8 days following objection by DSS to his request to be transferred to National Hospital for second opinion on his health condition. We had earlier in the year reported that the case between the federal government of Nigeria and the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, apparently took a new technical twist after one of the lawyers of the detained Biafra leader, Paul Erikoro, San, presented and played 3 videos which the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja later admitted in evidence. The videos of former Nigeria Chief of Army Staff, retired General Theophilus Danjuma, saying, "Security operatives in the West Africa country, specifically, the armed forces are working together with the armed bandits to kill Nigerians," stressing that, if Nigerians depend on the armed forces to curb insecurity, they will all die one by one. Also that of Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, saying, "Politicians are behind killings in the state." Lastly, and the most interesting video played at the court to counter the testimony or statement made by the DSS prosecutor witness over Nnamdi Kanu-led IPOB founding Eastern Security Network, ESN, allegedly created by group of youths in the southeastern geopolitical zone of Nigeria, often referred to as Biafra land, to fight in self-defense against Fulani armed bandits or terrorists that were advancing and killing people in the eastern states during the era of President Muhammadu Buhari, was that of the Director General of the Department of State Services, DSS, Adeola Ajayi, who is apparently the government chief complainer in the case, and the DSS DG in the video recorded and published by Symphony News Media in February 2025, narrated how youths of the Azare community in Katagum local government area and Tafawa Balewa community of Tafawa Balewa local government area in Bauchi State, when the DSS DG was the State Director of State Security Services, SSS, resorted to self-help and killed all Boko Haram terrorists that came to attack them without depending on the security operatives. According to the DSS DG, when Boko Haram terrorists invaded Azare community, they started shooting and killing people. Then, the youths went after the Boko Haram terrorists and killed all of them, even when one of the Boko Haram terrorists named Khalid climbed a tree and started firing gunshots from the tree towards the people who were on the lower ground. The Azare people resisted and went after him and subsequently killed him, although the federal government prosecution witness identified as BBB, who is a DSS operative, stated that the ESN is an illegal organization because there is no approval of government given to the people of Southeast to establish such a self-help group to defend their land against terrorists, unlike a Motecan security network in the southwest states that was approved and permitted by the government, also claiming his boss, the DSS-DG in the video, was asking communities to build the first line of defense by thus working with security operatives, but a careful and detailed study of the DSS-DG speech in the video shows that the FG witness, BBB, probably talked off points, totally off-key from the original intent and intention of Mr. Adeola Ajayi, the DSS-DG teachings and advise in the video, who had said the Azare community people acted in quick response to an emergency situation, and the storyline indicated that the people of Azare prepared themselves in advance, likely purchasing and acquiring firearms equivalent to AK-47 rifles to be able to face and kill all the Boko Haram terrorists that invaded the community, as narrated by the DSS-DG, and if true, the DSS-DG, the chief complainer, must also be ordered to appear before the court as a defender in the case to present a certified true copy of government approval given to Azare people to defend themselves, or prove beyond reasonable doubts how the people of Azare community were able to kill, merely with the bare hands, all the Boko Haram terrorists that invaded their community with high-precision weapons of mass destructions. In addition, the DSS-DG in the video probably advocated for the need for all individuals in Nigeria to have a gun, because he gave an example of a visit to the United States of America, USA, when his host in the US heard a police siren sound. He quickly brought out his gun and said, if the criminal chased after by the US police ran into his apartment, he would use the gun to kill the criminal suspect, and that not all. The DSS-DG in the video also recalled and referenced the words of Nigeria former head of state, retired General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, that if insecurity must end in Nigeria, Nigerians must be ready to resort to self-help like the people of Azare community did.
The ruling is simply requires Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the defendant, to enter his defense. It's not a pronunciation of guilt or not guilty. So that is why it's called a no-case submission. So the judge made a ruling that there's a prima facie evidence that needs to be explained. So in common parlance, it calls on him to come and mount his own defense. But there is the other aspect of the ruling that concerned extraordinary rendition. That very one is one that compounded us, because the extraordinary rendition of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is so open and notorious. Two international institutions or two separate panels of the United Nations have made pronouncements regarding his extraordinary rendition and called for his unconditional release. Nigeria is a member of the United Nations and therefore bound to consider that and implement that decision. And in Nigeria here, 3 courts have made similar pronouncements. First was by the Federal High Court of Umuahia, which awarded him 500 million naira. And the Court of Appeal also pronounced that he was a victim of extraordinary rendition. And in the Supreme Court, the same Supreme Court that sent this case back to trial, reached the same conclusion, that he was a victim of extraordinary rendition. And all these things are of the record. They are all in the file. And we remember when this trial was being conducted, these very documents were tendered in evidence. So it compounded us, it confused us, that the court now made a pronouncement that the extraordinary rendition had no evidence before the court, that no evidence of it was submitted before the court. And you remember, least but not the last, recently a Kenyan High Court made the same pronouncement. But well, if the court was misled by believing by mistake that these things were not in the evidence, it also said and left the door open that such evidence be submitted. So we are coming back with that evidence, and it's going to be quantum and legion.
So what about the first application on the enemy?
Well, that one too, it wasn't in evidence that the Nigerian Medical Association has intervened. So it came as a surprise. Well, there's a short date given of 8 days for the NMA to submit its report. So somebody is ill, I don't think NIA is going to change much of that. But I think the judge wanted to leave the record open to admit every possible evidence regarding this matter. But meantime, we are disappointed. Our client remains ill and remains detained. And we're not happy about that. His situation requires urgent and emergent care. So whatever the court says today does not mean that the government shall withdraw back. Just 2 days ago, I wrote a letter. A private hospital has also expressed readiness to admit him here in Abuja. For security reasons, I won't mention the name of the private hospital. But the government, if the government appears to have issues with taking him to the national hospital, we have given them an option of a private hospital also here in Abuja.
So it's safe to say that the application to be transferred to the national hospital was rejected?
Rejected? No, it's pending. Yes.
One other information.
It hasn't been rejected. It's pending. It's pending the admission of this report from the Nigerian Medical Association and the opinion of Nigerian Medical Association. And if you were in court, the judge had ordered that the committee or panel to be considered by the Nigerian Medical Association shall have a member from the National Hospital. So National Hospital is still in play.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
President of France, Emmanuel Macron, and its US counterpart, Donald Trump, on Tuesday engaged in a tough talk over the recognition of Palestine's state and the Israeli war in Gaza during the bilateral meeting both held on the sideline of the UN General Assembly in New York, where the French president insisted that Israel has already achieved more by killing the top militia leaders of Hamas, saying, "It doesn't work to dismantle the Hamas. This is not the right way to proceed," he said, while President Trump had reiterated and insisted that things will not work the way the French president had suggested, that the October 7, 2023 hostages still in the custody of Hamas cannot be honored with such suggestions. The meeting was held when videos of the French president, Emmanuel Macron, and Turkish President, Recep Erdogan went viral on the internet, where both presidents were stopped or blocked separately by New York police operatives as they tried to cross streets in the New York City over yet to be seen incoming motorcade of their counterpart President Donald Trump. The French president, Emmanuel Macron, called Donald Trump on the phone after his journey to the French embassy was blocked by police officers preparing for the motorcade of the US president, but that of the Turkish president, Recep Erdogan, could be seen quickly surrounded by his security team in a manner that makes the president look apparently in shock the moment some group of New York police officers advanced towards them to stop the Turkish presidential team from crossing the road. According to New York Times, nothing frustrates a New Yorker in a hurry like finding that a street has been blocked off because some big shot is in town. Apparently, the same is true for the president of France, Emmanuel Macron. On Monday evening, Mr. Macron, in New York for the UN General Assembly, was stuck on a Manhattan street corner that had been closed off for President Trump's motorcade. The meeting of world leaders is, among other things, a traffic nightmare. At first, Mr. Macron did what many New Yorkers might do. He pleaded with a police officer to let him cross the street. "I have 10 people with me," Mr. Macron told the officer, according to video that shows the French president making his case on the street corner. "I go to the French embassy." But the officer politely held his ground and would not let Mr. Macron cross the street. "I'm sorry, President, I'm really sorry," he told Mr. Macron. "It's just that everything's been frozen right now. There's a motorcade coming right now. I'm sorry." Mr. Macron, who has engaged in diplomacy to try to end the wars in Ukraine and Gaza, tried again. "I negotiate with you," the French president said on the video. When that didn't work, Mr. Macron did what average New Yorkers cannot do. He pulled out his phone and called the President of the United States. "How are you?" he asked Mr. Trump, cell phone pressed to his ear. "Guess what? I am waiting the street because everything is frozen for you." It was not clear from the video what Mr. Trump said, but Mr. Macron chuckled and told the American president that he was hoping to have a discussion with him and Qatari officials about the situation in Gaza. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Tuesday. The French president's office confirmed that while leaving the United Nations on Monday evening, Mr. Macron was caught in a freeze when the streets were blocked to allow the American president's motorcade to pass. Mr. Macron's office confirmed that Mr. Macron used the opportunity to call Mr. Trump and said the two had a very warm and amicable discussion about international issues. Mr. Macron was eventually allowed to cross the street. Video from Brut, a French news outlet, showed him walking past food carts and posing for photos with people, including a man who planted a kiss on his forehead. The New York Police Department said in a statement that thousands of officers were on call this week to ensure the safety of New Yorkers and foreign dignitaries during the UN General Assembly. Merci to President Macron for recognizing the dedication and tireless efforts of our officers who safeguard this annual event, the department said. During the bilateral meeting, President Macron asked President Donald Trump that, since over 2 years the Israel war in Gaza began, what has been achieved. The French president said it is not right to proceed with the aim of dismantling Hamas in the Palestinian city of Gaza, emphasizing that recognizing the Palestinian state does not mean the Hamas October 7, 2023 attack would be forgotten. According to Macron, many French people were killed and injured during the attack in Israel. Adding, he visited shortly after the attack to meet with the affected families. President Donald Trump had said that October 7, 2023 is one of the world's most saddest days in history that cannot be forgotten. Saying, it was a day, babies being sliced into half, young children's heads were watched being chopped off by the Hamas and it cannot be forgotten. Adding, he has always said the last hostages will be the toughest ones apparently to rescue, that, the suggestion of the French president will not honor the hostages.
We're trying to go to 67. So we will cross. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone needs to cross this way. Thank you. Follow up. We are. It should go.
I was always saying the last hostages are going to be the toughest ones, but you can't honor them by doing anything like you suggest. All you can do is say, we want our hostages back, and we want the war to end. We're going to want it to end.
Nobody forgets the 7th of October. I went there a few days after, taking families in my hands, and we experienced all together these horrific attacks. And by the way, we lost a lot of French people in these terrorist attacks. But after almost 2 years of war, what is the result? Once again, they killed the top leaders of Hamas. It works. This is a great achievement. But at the same time, you have as many Hamas fighters as you had the first day. So it doesn't work to dismantle the Hamas. This is not the right way to proceed.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
There is no doubt that this week may be an interesting week in the international community as world leaders gather for the 2025 United Nations General Assembly meeting to discuss and take a stand over decades of conflicts between Israel and the people of Palestine, especially some of them well known as Hamas fighters, over territorial integrity and sovereignty, most especially ever since the State of Palestine was officially declared by the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, on the 15th of November 1988, claiming sovereignty over the West Bank, which includes East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip, and as at the end of 1988, over 78 countries approved the declaration, including Nigeria, that recognized Palestinian state barely 3 days after the declaration on November 18, 1988, and the numbers have been increasing particularly since the beginning of 2024 like never before, as at September 21, 2025. over 151 countries out of the 193 United Nations members have recognized the Palestinian state, including United Kingdom, UK, which its recognition appears to be more disturbing to the Israeli government, with the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, issuing what he described as a clear message to the world leaders recognizing Palestine as a country of its own that it's not going to happen. The United Kingdom, Australia, Canada among others declared and announced their recognition of the Palestinian state on September 21, 2025, while countries like Germany, Italy, Japan and South Korea among others are yet to make their position known. In a video broadcast on Sunday, the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, said, "Today, to revive the hope of peace for the Palestinians and Israelis, and a two-state solution, the United Kingdom formally recognizes the state of Palestine," adding that the recognition is not a reward for Hamas, reiterating that the United Kingdom has already prescribed and sanctioned Hamas as a terrorist organization, saying, "Any member of Hamas will not be a member of the Palestinian government, including joining the security architectures of the Palestinian state." A statement by the Prime Minister of Israel Benjamin Netanyahu issued a few hours after the video broadcast by the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer. The Israel Prime Minister said there would never be a Palestinian state to the west of the Jordan River. In quotes, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "I have a clear message to those leaders who are recognizing a Palestinian state after the horrendous October 7th massacre. You are rewarding terror with an enormous prize. And I have another message for you. It's not going to happen. There will be no Palestinian state to the west of the Jordan River. For years I have prevented the creation of that terror state, against tremendous pressure, both domestic and from abroad. We have done this with determination, and with astute statesmanship. Moreover, we have doubled the Jewish settlement in Judea and Samaria, and we will continue on this path. The response to the latest attempt to force upon us a terror state in the heart of our land will be given after my return from the United States. Stand by."
In the face of the growing horror in the Middle East, we are acting to keep alive the possibility of peace and a two-state solution. That means a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state. At the moment, we have neither. Ordinary people, Israeli and Palestinian, deserve to live in peace, to try to rebuild their lives free from violence and suffering. That's what the British people desperately want to see. Yet, almost 2 years after the barbaric attacks of October the 7th, hostages are still held by the terrorists of Hamas. Recent images show the hostages suffering and emaciated. Hamas even refused to release all the bodies of the dead. I have met British families of the hostages. I see the torture that they endure each and every day. Pain that strikes deep in people's hearts across Israel and here in the United Kingdom. The hostages must be released immediately, and we will keep fighting to bring them home. Let's be frank. Hamas is a brutal terror organization. Our call for a genuine two-state solution is the exact opposite of their hateful vision. So we are clear. This solution is not a reward for Hamas, because it means Hamas can have no future, no role in government, no role in security. We have already prescribed and sanctioned Hamas, and we will go further. I have directed work to sanction other Hamas figures in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, the man-made humanitarian crisis in Gaza reaches new depths. The Israeli government's relentless and increasing bombardment of Gaza, the offensive of recent weeks, the starvation and devastation are utterly intolerable. Tens of thousands have been killed. including thousands as they tried to collect food and water. This death and destruction horrifies all of us. It must end. We have evacuated the first group of sick and injured children to the United Kingdom to be treated by the NHS, and we continue to increase our humanitarian support. But still, nowhere near enough aid is getting through. We call again on the Israeli government to lift the unacceptable restrictions at the border, stop these cruel tactics, and let the aid surge in. With the actions of Hamas, the Israeli government escalating the conflict, and settlement building being accelerated in the West Bank, the hope of a two-state solution is fading. But we cannot let that light go out. That is why we are building consensus with leaders in the region and beyond around our framework for peace. This is a practical plan to bring people together behind a common vision and a series of steps, including the reform of the Palestinian Authority, that takes us from a ceasefire in Gaza to negotiations on a two-state solution. We will keep driving this forward. As part of this effort, I set out in July the terms upon which we would act in line with our manifesto to recognise Palestinian statehood. That moment has now arrived. So today, to revive the hope of peace and a two-state solution, I state clearly, as Prime Minister of this great country, that the United Kingdom formally recognises the State of Palestine. We recognised the State of Israel more than 75 years ago as a homeland for the Jewish people. Today, we join over 150 countries who recognise a Palestinian state also. A pledge to the Palestinian and Israeli people that there can be a better future. I know the strength of feeling that this conflict provokes. We have seen it on our streets, in our schools, in conversations we've had with friends and family. It has created division. Some have used it to stoke hatred and fear, but that solves nothing. Not only must we reject hate, we must redouble our efforts to combat hatred in all its forms. We must channel our efforts, united together in hope, behind the peaceful future that we want to see. The release of the hostages, an end to the violence, an end to the suffering, and a shift back towards a two-state solution as the best hope for peace and security for all sides.
Osazuwakan Radio, bringing you the news in a more digital way. Osazuwakan Radio, bringing you the news in a more digital way.